Wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Okay, guys, I'm going to just freeze on this particular frame. Please just pause and read the hadith outlined on this page. Now I'm going to move on to the related content, which is the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia.
King Salman of Saudi Arabia named his favorite son, Mohammed bin Salman, as next in line for the throne on June 21st. In addition to the promotion, the king also removed all titles from the former crown prince Mohammed bin Nayef. The reorganization is nothing less than groundbreaking. Typically, Saudi Arabia has been ruled by kings in their 70s or 80s. But in his 30s, bin Salman will be the youngest ruler in the history of the kingdom and thereby preside over the political, economic and social reforms in the country. My name is Shirvan and welcome to Caspian Report. Check out our fundraising page on patreon.com/Caspian Report for ways to help support our channel. In a sequence of decrees, King Salman shook up the line of succession. In addition to elevating his son, the king also amended Article 5 of the Statute of Ruling, which stipulates that from now on, only the sons and grandsons of Ibn Saud can be kings and crown princes, meaning Saudi Arabia's distinct monarchy, which is based on agnatic seniority, is adopting the traditional principles of inheritance. This was a much-needed change as the Saudi kingdom was bound to shift from the older generation of rulers to a new generation. However, the recent changes were not spontaneous. They had been set in motion 2 years earlier when King Salman reshuffled the royal court and appointed his son, Mohammed bin Salman, as the deputy crown prince. But instead of outright naming his son as his successor, the king gradually introduced and elevated bin Salman to the power brokers within the Saudi dynasty. As such, bin Salman was quickly showered with official titles which he still holds, thus earning him the nickname Mr. Everything. Amongst his most important tasks, he oversees Saudi Aramco, the Vision 2030 reforms, and he leads the Saudi war in Yemen. Over the last 2 years, bin Salman has steadily gained the approval from the prominent members of the House of Saud. Yet, regardless of bin Salman's swift promotions, King Salman could not directly replace Mohammed bin Nayef since he was well connected within the royal family and the US intelligence community. In fact, bin Nayef was known for his fierce crackdowns of jihadist groups after the September 11 attacks. During his campaign against Al-Qaeda, he survived 4 assassination attempts, one of which left him injured. In recent years, bin Nayef also served as the head of the Ministry of Interior. In other words, replacing him was not so straightforward. So in April 2017, King Salman reorganized the royal court and created the National Security Center, which coordinates the country's national security and foreign policy. The legal body included members of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, National Guard, the General Intelligence Directorate, and the Ministry of Interior, the latter which was led by bin Nayef. Less than 2 months later, King Salman issued a decree that targeted the Bureau of Investigation and Prosecution, which is the Saudi equivalent of the Attorney General Office and fell within the jurisdiction of bin Nayef. The royal decree renamed the bureau and placed it under control of a prosecutor who reports directly to the monarch. Thus, by chipping power away from the Minister of Interior, bin Nayef was increasingly sidelined. These series of events allowed for a smooth public transition of power in late June 2017. Nevertheless, bin Salman's promotion was bound to happen either way. However, the crown prince's age also means that he is likely to reign for decades to come. So, unlike the previous kings, bin Salman cannot neglect the kingdom's much-needed economic and social reforms, since that would only create problems for himself later on. This also means that bin Salman's policies must be carefully considered, as any miscalculation will be his to deal with. In this context, long-term relations between Saudi Arabia and the United States will remain at a strategic level. In fact, bin Salman has worked hard to reassure the US intelligence community that he is a reliable partner and that he is fully dedicated to fight jihadist factions and consider the American interests in the Middle East. Essentially, it will be business as usual. One area of foreign policy that is expected to change are the relations between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Bin Salman has greatly aggravated the relations between the two, so much so that in May 2017 he promised to take the rivalry between Tehran and Riyadh inside Iran's borders. This posture and the geopolitical activities in the region implies that the Saudi-Iranian rivalry will persist, if not expand into new battle spaces. One example is the war in neighboring Yemen. Bin Salman has attempted to oust the Iranian-allied Houthi rebels in Yemen. Thus far, his efforts have failed. On top of that, the war is plagued with many controversies ranging from tactical failures to human rights violations and war crimes. As Saudi airstrikes devastate Yemen's infrastructure, the Yemeni people are on the brink of famine. If bin Salman does not change course in Yemen, sectarian violence will solidify the divisions between Sunni and Shia Muslims and by that result in the breakup of Yemen. Such an event would increase the risk of blowback into Saudi Arabia's sectarian divisions. Once again, we need to reinstate that bin Salman cannot kick the bucket to the next ruler. Anything that goes wrong will come back to haunt him. But besides foreign policy, the Crown Prince is also known for his plans to reform the Saudi economy. In the initiative known as the Saudi Vision 2030, bin Salman seeks to reduce Riyadh's reliance on hydrocarbon energy revenues. His plan involves putting 5% of the state-owned Saudi Aramco up for an initial public offering. To that end, bin Salman will use the generated funds as the financial engine for the reforms. Currently, the Crown Prince is exploring for ways to maximize Saudi Aramco's valuation and thereby improve the funding for his initiative. However, it is unlikely that 5% will be enough to fully fund the Vision 2030 initiative. As bin Salman continues to push ahead with the economic reforms, he could be compelled to sell additional shares of Saudi Aramco. But such a decision will come at the expense of other members of the royal family who perceive Saudi Aramco as their rightful piggy bank. Hence, internal opposition, especially from the third-generation princes, is likely to increase against bin Salman's economic reforms. In conjunction with his economic reform,
Hope you kind of took notice on that that statement there about the third generation princes taking issue with the selection of the crown prince.
the Crown Prince also seeks to reform education and work ethics in Saudi Arabia, which basically requires a complete overhaul of the social fabric of the Saudi society. Obviously, this is a far greater task than reforming the economy, for any swift change in civil and social rights will be met with stiff retaliation from the conservative religious establishment. As the future ruler of Saudi Arabia, bin Salman finds himself between a rock and a hard place. He is well aware of the need for economic and social change in Saudi Arabia, and even though he is close to the throne, the circumstances are not in his favor. To avoid an internal blowback, bin Salman will have to steadily but carefully navigate through the interests of Saudi princes and the religious establishment. If he stumbles, the impact on the region will be far greater than what we have seen thus far from the conflicts in the Middle East.